Das Erste, was im Krieg stirbt, das ist die Wahrheit. Und deswegen ist es wichtig, dass es Journalisten gibt, die uns ihre Augen, ihre Ohren leihen und uns darüber aufklären, was wirklich passiert, wenn ein Land in einen Konflikt gerät und dort auch versinkt. Vor 6 Jahren ziemlich genau begann die Ukraine-Krise, die Kämpfe entlang der Grenzen. Und seitdem ist es schwierig geworden, aus der Grenzregion verlässliche Informationen zu bekommen. Und wir haben es mutigen Journalisten zu verdanken, dass wir überhaupt wissen, was sich dort abspielt. Einer davon steht jetzt hier neben mir, Aleksei Bobrovnikov. Er ist ein preisgekrönter Journalist aus der Ukraine. Er hatte den Auftrag, in die Grenzregion zu gehen, um zu gucken, was dort passiert. Und diese Mission, die kostete ihm beinahe sein Leben, kostete ihn seinen Job. Und er musste in Deutschland Unterschlupf nehmen, denn in der Ukraine ist sein Leben nicht mehr sicher. Wir sind froh, dass er heute hier ist und uns ein bisschen direkt von der Front, direkt von dem Krieg, der noch immer entlang der ukrainischen Ostgrenze tobt. Alexei, it's great to have you here.
Good to have you reheard.
Alexei, you've been with us here on Sunday already, and you brought us some excerpts from your book. First of all, to all our viewers who haven't seen our talk on Sunday, you've been living in Germany now since 3 years, and going back to Ukraine is not an option right now for you. Why not?
Well, you did it in the announcement of the broadcast. You called me the last witness. But technically, it's not really true. It's like, but it is true in a way, because I am the last outspoken witness. So. It's just that hopefully I'm not the last witness living, and I do know that I'm not. We're talking about a series of crimes. We're talking about a series of murders, and this is the issue. I was the only one to talk about that in a pretty loud voice, as I do have one. And my voice was even louder back home when I was working for the the biggest broadcasting media there, and we were trying to expose the amount of crimes and money laundering and trafficking, which was enormous, even for Ukraine, being the smugglers' capital of the Eastern Europe.
Okay, so they forced you to resign or to shut up. You chose to resign. You took your research material with you, and this is gave us a chance to have an insight what's going on, how the war machinery is still going on, and how war actually is used also to traffic drugs and gold and money and obviously weapons. If before we start and you'll share some of your research with us, I would like to ask you to read us a little excerpt from your book that you've been working on over the past few years, that is about to be finished these days and will be published in Germany by the next year. The book is called Gray Zones, Grauzonen. Grauzone singular. Very good, thank you. And you will read us a little part. This part describes us the situation when one of your best sources got killed only a few days after you interviewed him.
It was hours after that, and basically we both received warnings, himself and myself. But the thing is that he was unlucky to be caught in the middle of that. I'll read a little excerpt from a piece, and those of you who were with us on Sunday already had some of this story, the part of that, but let's proceed. The little chapter, the abstract of the chapter is called The Nasty White Pawn. I spent quite a lot of time digging up dirt on him. Speaking about my informant, his name was Andriy Galuschenko. It was a very weird quest to search for compromising material on a man with whom you first met just hours before his own death. Why did they kill him? In order to understand why people are killed, one needs to know who is to profit. With whom has he crossed and who gave him the orders to do so? And had this man himself any capacity to obey such orders? When we first met, it seemed to me that he was an officer in the field doing his job flawlessly. And I may ask the director to show us some footage on the background. Oh, it is already there. He was the most energetic cop I've ever seen. Only after his death I've learned that Andriy Galuschenko was not a cop. He was not a part of any of the existing systems, being a part only of the ideal system he himself was trying to create. For several months I've been searching for some true dirt on him as well as on those who potentially stood behind his murder. Andrew's orders, received from the President of State and the governor of the region who created the mobile groups to control the demarcation line with so-called LDNR, was to monitor and halt the trade flows with terrorist-controlled lands. Andrew was digging for all sorts of malicious dealings there, for dirty cops, for commanders who left their soldiers behind and then received awards for bravery, for public fund embezzlers, smugglers, traitors, officers who broke the oaths. All the prime suspects of his investigations are still alive and hold their posts, while he is neither. He had understood and carried out his orders in a much broader sense than the most insane order would be formulated. The days before, 2 days before his death, Galuschenko called his daughter in Kiev. "We've traced something very big, kid. In a couple of weeks, we'll fight all the contraband out of here," he told her, laughing. Did he really believe in this "we will" thing, or was he simply trying to reassure himself? At 6:10 a.m. on September the 2nd, 2015, on the road leading to the small cable ferry across the Seversky Donets River, Andriy Galuschenko, already a dead man, instinctively started the engine of his car. Survivors who sat at the rear of his car heard the clicks. Tick, tick, tick. 2 or 3 clicks of a starter. Behind the wheel, Andrew was still trying to start the engine. Then he was silent. The truth is, he never knew where to stop.
Aleksei, we've just seen the images that you brought us of your source, of Galuschenko. 5 years after his death, do we know who the killers were?
I know the group that was involved in the murder. Apparently, they gave a corridor to those who killed the guy. That was done on purpose. That's what I know for sure. That's the clear evidence of being partners in a crime. I'm not a prosecutor to name the suspects. However, I've been doing that in this or that way for this few years, exposing those who were most probably in a position and in a situation when they could do this and most probably did it. This is one of the military units of Ukrainian army, unfortunately. This is the 92nd Military Brigade based in Ukraine, which took part in that murder and was a part of a plot, was threatening Andriy before his death and others. The issue is that this is just the bottom of the pyramid of a contraband and malicious dealing that is happening there. Today, I'm still doing some research for a book, and for instance, now I'm fact-checking a couple of stories that happened in this particular district just weeks before the tragedy happened, when these guys, my sources, were digging into a story when the so-called military tourists were arriving to the front line to, hunt for pleasure and adrenaline. And this is also the thing that is happening in a hybrid war when the real warfare is not happening and people are paying big cash, to shoot at, human beings on the other side of the demarcation line.
Just as a hobby?
As as something they want to try to pump some adrenaline into their veins. And, this is also one of the things that is happening. And apart from supporting and leading the trafficking and the drug trafficking or gold and silver trafficking cargoes through the porous line, there are also groups of people who support this type of tourism. And that's something that happens when that was a pretty good article in Washington Post, I trust, somehow connected to my story also. It said, the title ran, "When the war stops, it's time to worry.
Okay. We've see footage here that you brought us.
All the silver stuff. Good that you got it.
Yes, exactly. So tell us, what do we see here?
So this guy Andriy, who was supplying me with this information at the first stage of my investigation, that was his group filming the gold and silver works. We see those bags with this, you see this church stuff, like the crosses and this kind of attributes to the.
Who took that footage?
The footage is taken by one of the members of Andriy's group. For instance, this is Ukrainian national symbol. We see it here. This is, interestingly, these things are produced on occupied lands. And so Russians, who call Ukrainians, whatever, fascists, and this whole kind of fake propaganda the Russians impose on Ukrainians, and they apparently would, if they would believe in this kind of a story, they would never allow the national Ukrainian symbols to be produced on their occupied lands. However, this is gold and silver works that is being produced on the Russian occupied side, and money are tunneled through the porous border to LPR, so-called Russian enclave. So basically, that's the funding of terrorism. Now, we see here the codeine-enriched pills which are used to produce the ugliest and most dangerous drug of the time, the drug for the poor. It's called crocodile. This is one of the major issues back there in Ukraine and in Russia also. So this is just one cargo that we were able to trace there. This type of pills are used to produce the drug. This is a precursor to do the dirty drug business.
For whom is these drugs intended?
Those who cannot afford heroin, for instance. Okay. Now, heroin is pretty expensive. I don't know. Honestly, I was never into this type of stuff. But from what I know, it's something that an average peasant, an average fellow living on the demarcation line with no serious source of income, it could not afford it. But then this crocodile thing is dirt cheap. You can buy a bottle of beer or a dose of this thing. Some people choose this. And this is also one of the parts of this drug trafficking scams that we were able to trace on the front line.
You were also able to catch some images of weapons that were traded.
Quite a few interesting pictures that we got here in the next sequence. So this is, again, we're coming back to the illegal drugs.
Yes.
So it's also, there's a lot of rumors about meth, the crystal.
Synthetic drugs.
Yeah,
but these are like
it's
the
not
poor,
even, yeah,
poor
this
people
is the
drugs.
Drug for poor.
These are just
the drug for poor.
pharmaceutical.
But there's also amphetamine. There's also, of course, there is marijuana. Allegedly, there's heroin. This is one of the most, one of my favorite pictures. I took it in the western part of the country. That's Mukachevo. That's the border with the European Union, basically. We see two cops. Literally,
Ukrainian cops?
Yeah, these are Ukrainian cops. Literally, they are sitting on contraband. So these boxes are boxes with the counterfeit cigarettes being produced in the Russian-occupied enclaves of DNR. They are later brought through this porous system of the checkpoints, and they're transferred to European Union. From what I know, according to KPMG research a few years ago, we were talking about some 12 billion losses in European taxpayers' money because of only this type of contraband.
Tobacco, alcohol. Stuff like that?
We're talking about tobacco exclusively. So when it comes to alcohol, I would not be an expert here. I have no news. Funnily, when I just arrived in Europe, the first, I would say, job offers I was receiving from some people here were somehow connected to tobacco business. They wanted to know more. Now this is I'm not advocating for tobacco businesses, but if they exist, then they'd rather pay taxes.
They wanted to know where the
but if they
stuff
are here,
is coming from.
let them pay taxes.
Okay, let's talk
this
about
is weaponry.
Weapons, yes.
So there were a few episodes when weaponry was crossing the border. with the so-called border, with the
But this is not the
occupied.
border to Europe, to the EU.
No. We're talking about the Ukrainian town. This was stolen from a little Ukrainian, from one of the bases, not far from Ukrainian town of Volnovaha. We're one of the police battalion this time. So when we were talking about Andrew's death, there were military who were involved. This time it's about police.
Okay.
And so this stuff was stolen from one of the military bases, and it was traveling back to the rear, to the Ukrainian capital, Kiev, for reasons that are still obscure to me. So the black market in Ukraine is already flooded with the weapons. However, it may also be that this was the part of a potential arming some of the rebel groups in the rear, which is, it leads us somewhere to the field of geopolitics, and I would not go that far. But we are talking about massive, a real huge issue when the weapons and the rounds of ammunition are stolen from the military bases. And this is just one of the episodes that one of my sources was able to film. This guy is now in exile in one of the northern European countries. And thanks to the Berlin office of Reporters Without Borders, this guy got support from the local government, and he was recognized as a civic journalist, being a part of my investigative group.
Wow, okay. So maybe we bring up the map that you brought us in order to explain to us where are the borders, where's this commerce taking place, and where does it actually also infiltrate the EU?
Yeah, that's very good. That's a very good point. So when we look at the map of Ukraine, we got all of a sudden. So those green spots are basically the normal legal checkpoints of the border guards, with the European, Belarusian, Russian borders.
So these are the official checkpoints that nobody is supposed to just easily pass.
Well, there is a lot of corruption, though,
of course,
but still, it's something of a very different scale. It is official. So,
official corruption.
If you're, it's an official corruption. If you're caught on both sides, you kind of have to respond to the law. Bribing the officer on the border is quite an expensive business. Even in Ukraine, it's way too hard in Europe. But in Ukraine, it's possible, of course. But you do it from a very high position.
Yeah. Right.
However, when we look at the eastern part, we see no green or red whatsoever. There's just those spots just do not exist. And so the Russian border, controlled by the Russian and its insurgents and the Russian FSB and intelligence officers. Then we were kind of expecting to see some kind of a border on Ukrainian side, but we don't see it because, of course, Ukraine would not recognize the occupation of these lands. It claims it's a part of Ukraine, which is, of course, true. However, this situation allows the government to create a non-border state, which is this LPR, DPR, and this is exactly the heart of the gray zone in this part of the world. So the grayness means that you don't pay taxes, you can smuggle whatever you want. It's about human trafficking, about drug trafficking, it's about everything. And so you can, and this is what they do, they sell tobacco products. By the way, part of the scam was also supported by Russian Orthodox Church, which is a funny part of the story. So they are also part of the tobacco business in DPR, this Donetsk People Republic.
So we're talking about the eastern part of Ukraine became a vast land of, no rules, black markets, of bribing, of a machinery financing the war because too many people are benefiting from the war?
That's how it is. I mean, the insurgents in the poor lands are dirt cheap. You can buy them for no money, just allowing them to benefit from war. This is exactly what Russia is doing. We saw the same thing in Myanmar, in former Burma. That's the crystal capital of the world. And like the fragmentation of that part of the world due to crystal meth and to the local security services is the name of the game in Southeastern Asia. Now, we see basically the same type of a situation in eastern Ukraine, with the official authorities, including military, becoming exposed to the dirty cash that flows out of the place, and is basically creating a situation where this cancerous formation can grow or at least sustain itself in its borders. So this is exactly what is happening. Tobacco stuff is going through this porous border, then money, drugs, everything.
All right.
So when we talk about tobacco, this is just officially clear.
Let's talk about the borders to Poland, to Slovakia, Hungary, and Romania, because I can spot some parts that seem to be open too.
Well, I mean, that was just, this is a screenshot at some point. Maybe there was some, like, it's not the case. So the checkpoints was, the checkpoints are still there. However, the green border, we call it the border that involves the, some people call them jackets, some people call them camels in local parlance. Those are people who can bring a few kilos of something in their pockets, in their backpacks. And so when the green border basically belongs to the private hands. So being a family on the Hungarian border, owning a little piece of land on the border makes you one of the local contraband kings. And this is a very feudal and a very interesting kind of medieval situation when little lords of contraband are actually controlling the borders of an independent, a seemingly solid and transparent state.
Okay, Aleksei, what I do not understand is your company, your broadcasting boss sent you there into this gray zone, so to speak, in order to do that research, in order to get some lights into that very dark and sinister kind of an area and region. And that's what you did. People got killed. People got, threatened. You even got threats. Why are you here today? Why didn't they give you a medal? Because you've certainly did your job as a reporter.
Well, they sort of gave me a couple of medals, I got, I got some. I got the main prize of the Ukrainian journalism at the time. It was the little thing called the honor of the profession.
But at the same time, they asked you to stop your research.
They didn't want to expose the higher-ranking officials in the military, in the security service, and in the police.
So what you're saying is that the gray zone not only is a physical place somewhere at the eastern border of Ukraine to Russia, the gray zone is also amongst the people and even amongst the government in the Ukraine?
The gray zone is everywhere. If I got a call and if I got a threat that I would not be able to escape, and this is exactly what I did. I tried to be safe from that. But if one gets a threat and he is exposed to that, or his family or his beloved ones, and he keeps silence about something, this is the gray zone. So the gray zone is here. Every single witness to the case is the subject of a potential aggression against him. And this is why this is so damn hard to get into the heart of that place, because everyone is threatened and everyone is afraid.
Aleksei, we are very thankful for you to documenting what's going on in that very special gray zone that you've lived through and that you've escaped from. Your book will be out next year. It's going to be a long book. It's going to be a shocking book. Thank you for sharing a few first excerpts with us here at Medientage Munich. Thank you for carrying that legacy of all those people that are threatened, being killed, that you now carry, that you now possess on your hard drives, and to make us understand what's going on and to do what journalists do, to lend us your eyes, your ears, your knowledge, so that the truth ultimately will prevail.
Thank you, Richard. We had this little talk, and you called us dinosaurs of the profession. And it's better to be one of the last dinosaurs than to be one of the first lice on the head of a society. So hopefully we're still gonna bite some crap out of them.
Let's continue our talk some other day. Thank you very much, Aleksei Bobrovnikov. Thank you. Ja, meine Damen und Herren, vielen Dank, dass Sie uns gefolgt sind. Tut uns leid wegen dem Englisch, aber das ist manchmal immer ein bisschen so, wenn wir hier auch über die Grenzen hinaus kommunizieren. Ich gebe kurz ab zu Michael und zu Jacqueline und dann sind wir gleich wieder hier, auch mit einem englischen Interview. Und zwar geht es dann um den Wirecard-Skandal. Bis gleich.